Any questions?
Even in the meditation today, and I felt it yesterday too, when I'm in silence, in silence for any length of time, I'll feel myself going into total peace. It's the only way I can describe it. And even with my eyes closed, sometimes it even feels like illumination or gold color or something. And it comes in waves. It's in waves. And then it passes. And then I'm at work and a situation comes up which is disturbing. And it puts me into my old way of, not totally old way of reacting, because I don't react as strong as I used to. I noticed that there's a softening there in reaction, but it's still a reaction. I'm not dealing with situations as they come up at presence. That I know. But it's not as severe as it used to be, where I go into total panic and total fear. It's softened. But I'm not staying in presence when situations are coming out. I'm mostly realizing the presence when I can be quiet.
Yes.
I mean, I spent a fair amount of time yesterday because I had some difficult situations going on all week, so I gave myself the time to just be quiet yesterday.
Right.
And I had some really wonderful peace. And then even in meditation just now, I was feeling it going, coming and going to total peace, and then just coming back and realizing, oh, that was what that was. That was just total peace. And then I leave that and then come back into it. So can you talk about that? It feels like flowing in and out.
Yeah. Well, when you are in this, what you described as a meditation or quiet, and there is peace, experience as peace, that's one experience. You're experiencing peace, which is just a relaxed openness, not the mind moving. And then you mentioned how then you realize, oh, I'm experiencing peace. In other words, you became aware that what your experience was, which is a different experience from the experience of just being being peace. It's being aware of the peace. So there is the experience of peace and the awareness of peace. It's like right now you are just this presence, and then you can sort of turn your attention that you're aware of presence. So it's a different direction than just enjoying the presence, than being sort of you're like swimming, and then you realize that you're in the ocean swimming. It's slightly different experiences. But they're both ignorance-free, suffering-free. Which is very lovely, because really it is about the end of suffering, right. The end of the me impression, and living in love, beauty, and causeless peace and happiness. So it's all is fine. There isn't the mind arising saying, oh, I should, or I wish I did, or why didn't I? None of that. At least the way you describe, the way you shared, from what you shared. Now, about being at work or in life situations where there are already tendencies to be in relationships where the gaze is not towards the universality of consciousness. Rather, there might be, let's say, more tendencies to relate out of ignorance, perceiving each other as threats and blaming, the whole charade of the separate self-impression. It's already very lovely that you're noticing that there is lesser a tendency to take the me stance. And it's already, very lovely. Now, in life situations, there is an interaction. Sometimes you have to respond. You have to respond to certain situations. You have to make a decision. You have to express a certain opinion or make a certain choice. When you make those choices, when you make those decisions, or when you express yourself from a more global position than the personal tendency that is imagining a threat, instead to sort of take in consideration everybody's benefit as much as possible, listening, trying to sort of put yourself in the other person's shoes as well as your own, to get a less contracted understanding, a less contracted image of what the situation is. And be genuine in recognizing the other as your very self. could be your brother, your sister, your mother, your daughter, yourself. It could be. It is, you, and maybe looking as a man or a young woman, older lady, whatever. But it's yourself. And then you make the best choice you can at the time. Of course, sometimes you have an opportunity to request more time to consider, to reflect. Sometimes not. Sometimes a decision needs to be made relatively, there are some time constraints, and then you do your best. You do your best out of that genuine intention. And then you let go. You let go. You let go of where it goes for Francesca, where it goes for in your relationship with your boss, in your relationship with your friends, wherever it goes, you let go. So it's a moment by moment. If the interaction is dynamic, it's a moment by moment considering everybody's win-win situation as best as you can, and taking it more global than a personal, and see if the entire ship can sort of roll together. And then let go. You let go of the consequence. This is trust God. You do your part, which is to approach the situation from a more global point, more global stance. And definitely the judgments. I could have done better. Why didn't I? In hindsight, everybody is a savant. They know better. But at the time, there are only so much you can understand, so much data that's coming at you, so much information. There are certain limitations and constraints. You do your best. So there really isn't a going back and forth. It's the eternal presence. It's eternal presence. There isn't a going back and forth. It's just this way of being right now that's open, trusting, and it's not trying to defend and safeguard some entity. You're not an entity. It's not trying to safeguard an entity, because you are not an entity. What we refer to as entities, what the mind refers to as entities, are impressions. They're mind impressions. You are not an entity. That's a labeling pattern of the mind, a labeling tendency of the mind. You are the aware presence that's borderless aware presence. And there is intelligence of consciousness. Consciousness is intelligence, among other things, wisdom, love, and freedom. So there is intelligence that arranges the display and takes care of it, takes care of the scene. You know, the intelligence in the body, the functioning of the body, the entire organismic, the blood flow and the perceptions, the senses, and it's interconnected. This organism is interconnected with the trees, the weather, the air, the quality of the air, the water, the oceans, the animal world, all the benefits that they do in nature and how they interact and interacts with us. It's a cosmic organism. They're not separate, all interconnected and interacting and interfacing. And there's a flow, and it's all just beautifully designed. And in this grand design, when you turn your attention away from feeding the separate me framework, in this grand design, then there is beauty and love and joy and peace and celebration. That's the wisdom that comes in this realization, that as you feed the habitual tendencies of the me habitual tendencies, the dream remains infected and unhappy and does not reveal, the grandiose aspect of consciousness, which is just infinite freedom, love, and beauty, and wisdom, and intelligence.
Get there.
How do you get there? Was that the question?
Yeah.
How do you get there? Yeah, you see, the there is here. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not the there in. It's not an experience. It is that to which all seeming experiences arise and appear to. That right now hears these words, perceives this perception.
Is it more of a perception shift? Because I get it, because I've been everywhere. We are.
Yeah, you could say it's a perception shift is part of it. I wouldn't say it's a perception shift. Perception shift is it's a good direction to take. So rather than your attention being focused on me and my whatever, my life, my situation, so on, in the world, of course, always in the world and in relationships, at work and whatever, rather than the focus being on that, excuse me, notice the screen rather than the images. So how do you notice the screen? By noticing that the images are constantly fleeting, they're constantly changing, there is an impermanent quality to the images. One moment they're there, a few minutes later, it's a different thought. You're feeling so in the morning. An hour later, you're having a ball talking to your friend or to your daughter or mother or whatever. 3 hours later, you're depressed or you're thinking about last week at work. It's constant. What the images on the screen are constantly changing. And consider that there is a reality, the reality of your experience, whatever it is. It's not nothing. There is a reality. But this reality, whatever that is, cannot be those fleeting images. Because if the images are fleeting and the reality is dependent on the fleeting images, then it wouldn't be reality. It can't depend. Reality cannot depend on the body-mind, the changing body-mind. It has to be real of its own, not depend on something else. So reality is sort of real to itself, of itself to itself. So it cannot be dependent on the world body-mind. So the world body-mind stream is not where you will find the fulfillment of the self, of the source. So you relate with the world body-mind very light-handedly. Light-handedly? Light-handed? Light-handed. Light-handed. Not taking it too seriously. Not getting worked up about life and death, the rise and fall of the shore, about the weather, about the coming and going of relationships, the coming and going of health and wealth. You don't give them too much weight. You just sort of attend to them light-handedly. Like with a child, they cry, think it's the end of the world. I remember when my daughter, her first child, she started crying. I thought it was the end of the world because she was crying. Wow. I mean, really. I mean, they want to call for help. In emergency room, you call the hospital, whatever. You have to call somebody. You have to get some help. 10 minutes later, like it's gone. And she's like, After a while, of course, she could cry. I was like, okay, what is wrong? Maybe she needs a breast. Maybe she needs to be changed. Maybe she needs, to be caressed, to be held. At the same time, you contemplate the reality of your experience, meaning you're in wonder, you're wondering, what is this experience? What is the reality of this experience? But you don't know, because all what the mind knows is conceptual. The mind knows what it has accumulated, stories, memories. It can talk about feelings and emotions and relationships. The mind cannot know what is the reality of your experience. But yet there is a reality to your experience. So you remain open, but the revelation of what is the reality of this experience. But you don't, what is the reality of this experience? But you don't know. The mind does not know. So you stay with this not knowing. You see, from the mind's point of view, not to know is like big boo-boo. There is a big red X on, we don't know. That's abhorrent to the mind, because the mind is about knowing. So, in a way, not knowing is not of the mind. It is, let's say, the otherness. The otherness. Not the otherness. Otherness. Not of the mind realm, not the realm of the mind. So when you are in not knowing, you are in the arms of the Divine Mother, not unknowingly. This is very beautiful, unknowingly. And the Divine Mother loves you and will reveal herself to you. Trust the not knowing. It's a diametrically different directions from trusting the mind. It's major. In a way, one could say that the sage or consciousness of the self is the eternal not knowing. But it's not a not knowing of something. It's just the purity of not knowing. There is a peace and tranquility in not knowing.
Freedom.
The freedom. Of the need to know, of the sense that if I know, then I will be fulfilled, I will be happy, and so on. So the so there is an alertness in this not knowing. It's like when you are trying to solve a problem, and you look at all the data, all the information that's available, and there is an alertness, and in a way you don't know where to go next. But it's not like a submissive. Oh, I don't know what to do next. And no, it's alive and awake, and that is not nothing. And at some moment, there is this aha, there is sort of a suspension, a complete suspension of all the realms of the body-mind. And there is understanding. There is a revelation. You get it. You get it. And once you get it, you got it. Yeah. That's it. You don't. There isn't. It's a celebration. I don't know where I went with your question. I forgot what your question was, but